13 games, over 60 maps and nearly 100 wonder weapons, and that is just a fraction of what's available in the world of COD Zombies. And so of course there is a huge number of things that have been completely forgotten about, so with that in mind let's take a look at 40 of them. Mob of the Dead may be one of the most famous maps in the entire series, but even an experience that well known has features that tons of fans completely forgot about. Although traps like the acid shower can be fairly useful, it's probably not as unique as a sniper jumping in to save you from the zombies. Well, even that's not as crazy as the forgotten ability to upgrade this impressive tool to an RPG instead. It's as simple as activating the trap, jumping straight into afterlife mode and shocking the nearby voltmeter, following which you can watch as the explosives rain down on the undead, wiping them completely off Alcatraz Island. But not everything that's forgotten in COD Zombies is as serious as this, because although Rushmore in Alpha Omega is very well known, one of his talents is definitely not. Incredibly OP power-ups, free undead man walking abilities, and even a 1000 point gift, they're all great, but none of these are even in the same league as robot comedy.
A man standing in a bread line in Moscow says, "I've had enough. Hold my place. I'm gonna shoot Brezhnev." And off he goes. An hour later he comes back. "Did you shoot Brezhnev?" "No. The line over there was even longer."
I mean, it's a nice break from the zombie-related action, particularly on a map that often drove people insane with its pretty crazy enemy choices. And although OG Edward Richtofen definitely wasn't an enemy, let's not act as if he was anything other than a huge maniac. Well, one thing that loads of fans forget about is actually directly related to this deranged scientist. If you jump into Shino Numa and take a trip over to the doctor's quarters, you can find a book that clearly belongs to the man himself, and interacting with it will give you a creepy little treat. Let's be honest, that is very on brand for Richtofen. Ascension may have arrived just 2 years after Shino Numa, but interestingly the original version of that map didn't contain a forgotten detail that was only present in the Zombies Chronicles remake. Anyone who decided to grab hold of Widow's Wine, which had famously replaced the PhD machine, would find it extremely useful against the undead and maybe think it could be just as impressive against the perk stealing monkeys. They would however be massively disappointed if they attempted to throw their Widow's grenades at these creatures, as they would just gobble them up straight away as if they were an evening meal. A bit of a slap in the face really, and they do exactly the same with normal grenades too. However, that definitely was not the case in the original version of the map, as they will literally just go, excuse me, what do you think you're doing? And launch it right back at you. It's as if they're genuinely insulted that you even thought that these explosives could take them down. How embarrassing for you. Infinite Warfare Zombies may have been a bit of a letdown in the eyes of some players, but it did actually contain some features that are totally forgotten. No, I'm not referring to the Lost and Found, the Afterlife arcade, or even the tickets mechanic, because this is one that 100% should have been brought into the Treyarch series. The old school 4 perk system still existed in the world of Willard Wyler, however, this time around, if you decided that you no longer wanted to keep hold of one of those that you'd already paid for, then you didn't have to. All you had to do was go back to the machine you got it from and you could just remove it. It was so useful, and it's kind of mind-blowing that it didn't become a full-time feature. And neither did a very unique version of an item that only lasted 2 weeks. The Chaos story in Black Ops 4 obviously couldn't contain the classic monkey bombs due to the lack of connection between the two worlds, so instead the devs gave fans the homunculus to take its place. But you might not even know about the fact that for just 14 days during the Shamrock and Ore event in 2019, Treyarch completely changed the look of this little guy to make his appearance leprechaun themed. If you jumped into something like 9 or Voyage of Despair now though, it's just sadly good old basic boring homunculus. Such a shame. Over in the massively hated Advanced Warfare Zombies, the developers were actually pretty smart and introduced a feature that was largely forgotten about, probably because next to no one plays that version of the mode. Loads of people remember the fact that the upgrade system in that game was fairly weird, with 20 possible levels pre-Easter egg and 25 after. But not many fans think of the fact that your weapons in AW actually remember your level. So if you get to a certain point with upgrades but then decide to swap out your gun, the next time you grab hold of it again, it will retain the power it had before you decided to get rid of it. A very smart little mechanic. Some forgotten details though are purely cosmetic, like how Shadows of Evil took one of the most famous things in Zombies history and gave it a map themed facelift. The well-known teddy bear moving the mystery box after too many spins might not be a surprise to anyone, but how it looked in this Black Ops 3 launch map may well be if you haven't played it in a long time, as the devs gave him a Cthulhu-style mask to fit the vibe of Morgue City, and it looks so good, it really makes you wonder why they didn't do this with other experiences. Back over to IW Zombies, as the ability to remove perks wasn't the only useful forgotten thing that Infinity Ward added to the franchise, as their version of a well-known one, amusingly called Mule Munchies, featured a great addition that could really help out some less experienced players. Because once fans had got on hold of a third weapon, the perk would actually indicate to them which one it was so that they would know exactly what they would lose if they went down. Really something that should have existed in the Ether timeline too, to be honest. But something from that world that players could have done without could be found in Origins if you decided to do exactly what you're not supposed to. It's well known that in the first ever premise map, Samantha Maxis can often be heard guiding fans through the experience with some pretty famous quotes.
Can you hear me? Please, you have to help me. I'm trapped here. I just want to go home.
Well, there are actually lines that are way less known, but you can only hear them if you ignore all of Samantha's requests until she ends up in a bit of a temper tantrum.
I demand that you do what I say.
I mean, good luck getting Primus to take on the Apothegons with that attitude. And I'm pretty sure this next forgotten item wouldn't be much help against a giant squid monster. The plant system in Zetsubou No Shima is often remembered as one of the most frustrating things in BO3, but it can be so much easier if you manage to get hold of an item that quite a few fans don't even remember about. And that's probably because it takes ages. It first involves growing one of 4 different plant types, the reward version, one that holds a zombie for you, one that eliminates them, and finally a fruit plant, as well as completing the Skull of Nansapwe quest so you can mesmerise 2 walls. After this, you can use the skull to remove the vines below Lab B and rather amazingly, plant your metal bucket in the ground. Following this, all you had to do was plant seeds in the 3 newly revealed spots, which would spawn zombie eaters and feed a couple of rounds worth of the undead to them. You would then be rewarded with the golden bucket, unlimited water and the ability to cycle through whatever colour you wanted. I mean, not really surprising loads of players forgot about this when the quest is nearly as long as the main Easter egg. Also, one of the plants needed for the golden bucket quest that I just mentioned has an amusing detail that some fans never remember. If you decide to grow a fruit plant with the hope of being rewarded with a free perk for your troubles, there's a chance that you may get something very different that you really weren't expecting. To be fair, based on how bad some of those perks supposedly taste, I feel like they'd probably make you throw up too. And speaking of perks, it's actually somehow possible to get hold of a buffed version of a well-known one in Origins, it's just not really official. Back in the BO2 days, fans discovered that if you got hold of Electric Cherry from the Wonder Fizz and upgraded one of the elemental staffs to its extremely powerful version, then you could use a technique where you'd use the Sekhmet's Vigor, and as long as you started the reload animation for Electric Cherry to activate and switch straight back to the normal staff before it could complete, then it would throw out a huge blast way bigger than the normal version. Loads of players classed it as the upgraded Electric Cherry, and you may not even know it existed. And you may have totally forgotten about a weapon that only ever appeared in one Zombies map. Let's be honest, this could be loads of different things, the Remington New Model Army in Buried, the Marshall double pistols in Zetsubou No Shima, or the Bloodhound in Shadows of Evil, but no, it's none of those. Because I'm actually talking about the Rift E9 that only showed up in the huge nostalgia bait that was Revelations. You could grab it from the mystery box and it was fairly decent, but being real, why would you bother using it when you could give yourself God mode with the upgraded Apothecon Servant? And the other map that features that wonder weapon, Shadows of Evil, also contains a side Easter egg that players hardly ever do. Just visit the ritual room near Spawn, the canals next to the Ruby Rabbit and the Rift area by Pack-a-Punch in order to get 3 microphone parts. And once you visit the Burlesque Club, you'll be treated to a little musical number called Cold Hard Cash. I'd gladly play it for you, but I fear that if I did, I'd have both YouTube and Activision executives smashing down my door to steal my setup as a punishment for copyright issues. In the same game though, just one DLC later, you can get a free reward you probably never even knew about if you just put in a little bit of work. When spawning into Eisendrache, all you have to do is throw your grenades in the nearby gondola, and then collect and use 4 different tram fuses to get power-ups, and then on your 5th one, the second gondola would be called and you'd be gifted an upgraded version of either the Man of War or the Haymaker, or possibly even monkey bombs. It's probably not the only thing you've never witnessed with your own eyes, because there's actually a version of Kino to Toten that 99% of fans haven't even played. It was in fact only available in Germany, and due to the sensitive nature of some of the content, various controversial imagery was replaced so that it could meet the required standards in the country. Not only that, but the map's wonder weapon, the famous Thunder Gun, received a name change, becoming the Thunder Cannon instead when translated from German, and that exact same thing happened with the Ray Gun too. And last but definitely not least, in this version of Kino, it was genuinely impossible to make a crawler. Sounds insane, but it's totally true. These zombies didn't lose limbs when hit with various explosives, meaning that one of the most famous features that players always use simply didn't exist here. It's kinda nuts. But probably not as insane as the weirdest power-up in the history of the game. Zombie blood hiding you from the undead, fire sales allowing you to hit the mystery box for a fraction of the price, and perk drops giving you a nice little gift for free are of course just some of the ones that everybody knows about. But what about the drop that fans never remember, known as security? You may hear that and say, excuse me, what the hell is that? Well, that's a fair question, because it only existed in Advanced Warfare and its purpose was pretty odd, activating every single trap in the entire map all at once for a short period of time. No wonder it never appeared in another game. It's probably as dangerous for the player as it is for the zombies. And speaking of power-ups, they can be way more useful in Eisendrache than most players realise. The rocket area in this map is obviously fairly important for a number of reasons. Not only does it give you a part for the Ragnaroks, but you obviously need to do certain things in that part of the experience without a test going off. And you may never have known that in order to guarantee that doesn't happen, all you need to do is spawn a power-up. Yep, it's as simple as that. As long as enough time has passed since the last test, all you gotta do is use a gobblegum that spawns one and you can force the rocket area to go and fire up its thrusters. But you probably totally forgot about this, right? But maybe you never knew about a hidden feature of the hacker device in Moon. Let's be honest, it's probably one of the most unique and impressive items ever to appear in a map, but even its biggest advantages like being able to lock the cage around Pack-a-Punch or making doors much cheaper is not what I'm talking about here, as this thing actually gives you free points. As long as you keep it in your inventory instead of the PES and wipe out the zombies in a part of the map where you can get oxygen, then each round you'll be given points just for surviving with it. Talk about generous. Sadly though, we can't say the same about a fake version of the most overpowered consumable of all time. Ever since Gobblegums were added in Black Ops 3, pretty much every Zombies fan agrees that the one that all players want to get hold of is Perkaholic. It was the case when it first arrived in the series, and also when these gumballs made a triumphant return in later games. But as for the Black Ops 4 version, not so much, because this thing was an absolute travesty. Although in that game it came in the form of an elixir instead, the idea was the same: give players a huge number of perks for free. However, due to the massive changes to the system in that game, you would annoyingly be given the 4 perks that you'd personally selected to be on the map, and then 6 random other ones from all of those available. Still fairly powerful, but you could just end up with a load of perks you didn't even want, all because you got unlucky. And I wouldn't blame you if you forgot about this one, you probably blocked it out due to trauma. But you definitely couldn't say the same for a secret wall buy in Revelations. Outside of Zombies Chronicles Origins, the only BO3 map to contain the Tommy gun is DLC 4, and yes, you can get it out of the mystery box if you're lucky enough, but why bother when you can guarantee it through a small side quest? Grabbing hold of some chalk from the Eisendrache area of the map will then allow you to move around loads of classic quotes to their correct locations, which will give you the chance to buy the Tommy gun off the wall whenever you like. And who knows, maybe you could stick it down on the weapon swapping table for a friend that this quest also unlocks, if you even remember these existed, that is. And who knows, maybe you also forgot about a pretty amusing shield upgrade in BO3. Getting hold of a buffed version of the Guard of Fafnir and Gorod Krovi is fairly well known, right? I mean, you pull it out of a dragon's stomach, you're not going to forget that in a hurry, are you? But you can do the very same thing in Shadows of Evil with the rocket shield. All you gotta do is eliminate 10 zombies with one burst 12 times in a row in order to unlock it. Why, you ask? Because that is the exact number of pins you would need to knock down for a perfect game in 10-pin bowling. You've just got to love the Zombies devs. Just like you have when they add in a hugely hidden ability in an amazing map like 9. In order to take full advantage of it, all you needed to do was complete your challenges to be provided with one useful item, as well as finding 2 other parts hidden around the map in order to build the acid trap near spawn. Players then needed to use it to eliminate one of each catalyst zombie type in this gladiatorial coliseum, as well as a tiger, and then finally slide under both the acid and blade traps after activating them. And then, instead of being completely torched by the fire in the spawn room, this would happen. Gotta say, a very useful little side quest if you're planning on training in that area. One game before this though, you could grab hold of a very hidden trophy by doing something that 99% of players would never even try. The spiders in that map are of course pretty useless, but them leaving webs everywhere can be quite rewarding if you know what you're doing, as disposing of these things in a variety of different ways can provide you with an achievement. And they include the normal knife, grenades, ray gun, bowie knife, an explosive weapon like the XM53, Widow's wine grenades and the KT4. Now, it's totally up to you to decide whether all of that is worth it just for a trophy, but I'll leave that decision in your hands. Just like a secret weapon in Black Ops 4 that a massive number of fans have never even used. If you managed to hang on till the end of the original Ether story in 2019, then you probably jumped into Tag to Toten and discovered you could randomly throw snowballs at zombies. Kinda useless, right? Well, not once you, shall we say, improve them slightly. After hitting sock puppets around the map with them and sacrificing zombies next to glowing blue campfires, all you gotta do is get hold of a human spleen from the clifftop lab, cool it down in the freezing waters and deliver it to Pablo in the lighthouse, and he will provide you with these. Yes, they eliminate zombies in one hit, yes they are yellow, and yes they are yellow for the exact reason you think. You probably wish you still didn't know about these, right? Very fair, I won't lie. If we're talking about throwable items though, let's touch on a totally forgotten power-up that 100% relates directly to them. If you were one of those players that I spoke about earlier who was really not a fan of IW zombies, then you may have completely forgotten about a drop that only existed in that game, infinite grenades. Yep, it's exactly as it sounds, as many grenades as you want in the time the power-up's on screen. The problem was though, you couldn't even spam them. It was so slow and kinda useless, not really surprising it never made a comeback. But something that did was the Lil Arnies. After initially showing up in Shadows of Evil, they also reappeared in Revelations, obtainable from the mystery box. But obviously this is definitely not forgotten, right? Well, how about the fact that they could be upgraded? It's probably more well remembered in Shadows because of the iconic dancing gateworms that appear once you've completed the mini quest. But it could also be done in DLC 4 by getting 150 kills using the Arnies and launching one of them into the church window at spawn. I suppose the real question is though, which do you prefer, monkeys or Arnies? We gotta take a trip back to Advanced Warfare Zombies to talk about a perk that loads of community members forgot about because it only appeared in 2 of its maps, and that is Exo Stockpile. It was genuinely one of the better things available in that hated mode, increasing players' ammo capacity by 20% and even providing them with more grenades and tacticals. See, not everything from AW was bad, I mean, most of it was, but not this. Over to the Treyarch universe again though for a power-up detail that many people really ignore. I may have mentioned fire cells very quickly earlier, but what I didn't touch on was what you actually have to do in order to get one. Sure, in BO3 you can just use the Immolation Liquidation Gobblegun, but outside of that you will never be able to get a fire cell drop if you haven't forced the box to move at least once by using it over and over again until the teddy bear appears. There's a chance that you may not have even known this though and just assumed that they spawn randomly later in a match. But something that will require way more work in Revelations largely never gets used by loads of fans because you can already become stupidly overpowered without them. Okay, so if you had to pick a map where it's very easy to become insanely OP, it'd probably be the conclusion to Black Ops 3. The upgraded Apothecon Servant combined with the Thundergun and a Perkaholic is pretty unbeatable. So obviously most players never even bother to unlock any of the different masks available in that DLC that give you purple versions of well-known perks. They stacked on top of the originals that players had already obtained in order to make you even more resistant to the undead. But to be fair, when you're already busy wiping out entire hordes with a Squid Monster's miniature portal, it's not exactly shocking that loads of fans never bother to grab them. In the same game, there's an enemy type that many community members forget about, largely because they don't even allow them to spawn in the first place. With panzer soldats of course arriving in Eisendrache fairly often, many players do not waste any time and eliminate them as soon as possible. Doing this though actually rules out the arrival of both electric and fire zombies that can only be created by the panzer if you don't destroy it as soon as it drops on the map. So basically, if you're efficient then you may not even remember about both of these foes. One map earlier though in Shadows of Evil, it's actually possible to essentially speed up how fast you can get hold of a load of points with less knowledgeable players often not knowing about its existence. It can only be activated immediately when spawning into Morgue City as the Shadow Man watches on from above in intimidating fashion. Zombies fans with a much better memory will already know that all you have to do is lay into him repeatedly with a few bullets and the game will eventually skip straight forward to round 15, meaning that you'll get into the fast-paced action way quicker and be given a ton of points to do it with. Not everything that's forgotten is useful though, some things aren't remembered because they're a little bit pointless. I mentioned the Zombies in Spaceland ticket system earlier and we're going back there because that is the only way to get hold of a genuinely awful wonder weapon. Collect enough of that cardboard currency and you'll be able to trade it in for the Forge Freeze, an ice ray that falls off so badly it's not a viable high round strategy. It's a shame because it looks so cool, and no, that wasn't a pun. Okay, yes it was a pun. Keeping things in frozen territory though as we move over to Tag to Toten and the ice-ridden wasteland of Siberia. Famously, you spend half of your time in that map avoiding getting stuck in ice and wiped out by the zombies, but if you know what you're doing, you'll have nothing to worry about. Getting hold of dynamite and accessing the flinger near the clifftop lab is the first step, followed by launching yourself in 3 different directions in order to break crates and get all the items you need to craft the heat pack. This thing pretty much guaranteed you wouldn't end up getting frozen in the ice-cold waters, well, as long as you remembered it, that is. Black Ops 4 provided tons of useful items for players with a good memory, like how on Dead of the Night you can earn a secret wonder weapon that will obliterate vampires. All it involves is putting out 6 different candles on the Rhodes estate, leading a ghost to the mausoleum after obtaining a zombie blood style effect from the forest. Following this, fans need to eliminate 4 glowing zombies in different ways, taking them out with a normal weapon, the player's tactical equipment, their specialist weapon, and finally their shield. Each will drop an item that needs to be placed down in the mausoleum, after which they need to wipe out a fairly large number of vampires till the floor glows fully blue. And then all that's left is to access a secret crypt and grab the Savage Impaler in order to take on an intense lockdown. Fortunately though, this secret weapon is perfect for this scenario as it can drop vampires in one hit, as that's essentially the whole point of it. But surely you didn't forget about this, right? Some things that aren't remembered by Zombies fans though have nothing to do with eliminating them and instead are way more defensive, like being able to upgrade your standard wooden barriers to an awesome looking metal version. This perma perk was only ever available in the 3 Victus maps and Black Ops 2, and involved knowledgeable players repairing 50 different wooden planks in order to improve their building abilities and get hold of steel barriers that were more effective at keeping out the undead. And if you constantly did this all those years ago, then fair play because you must be a real OG.